with our LinkedIn Live series. New name this week, switching up from virtual coffee to ground truth. That's a term that we've been liking recently. Joel, do you want to give a bit of background before we dive in on our new name?
Yeah, certainly we want to enjoy our time having coffee with each other like we always have. But I think you're really trying to, frame what we're covering in these conversations. It's really, sort of that foundational insights that can help inform everyone in the industry on some best practices and really helping them, understand some of the new technologies and the roles that they're playing in shaping these asset management programs looking ahead. So really excited to, have a name that we're, plays on a couple levels, hopefully. And, we're excited to have our first episode under the new branding today.
Yes, so same show, just a different name. And we are excited today to be joined by Tony. Again, we're still on the coffee train, so, and Joel and I, of course, are here as well. But Tony, would you like to kick us off? What is your coffee order? I've got my trusty latte going. What do you have going over there?
I have a vanilla latte myself that I made. So
okay,
there you go.
All right, we're on the same page. Iced or hot, though?
It's hot.
Okay, see, mine's going to be always iced. It doesn't really matter what.
No matter what the weather is, it's got to be hot.
All right, polar opposites. And Joel, what about you? What do you got over there?
So this is my day 2 coffee. So I make the giant pot day 1, have hot coffee that morning. And then day 2, I've got plenty of cold coffee from the fridge that I can just make my iced coffee with. So no sugar, just a little cream.
There you go.
The usual. Love it.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm really excited about this conversation today. So let's dive on in. Tony, do you want to give us kind of your background and where you're coming from, your angle on this today?
My angle. Yeah. All right. Well, again, thanks for everything, guys. This is really great. I'm pretty excited about it. So I've been in the business for over 30 years. Been, working for different companies. Some you may heard of recently, Fugro, L3 Harris, CDC, Forsite. In the past, I worked for Space Imaging, which is the first commercial satellite company, which is now, after its iterations of being bought, part of Vantor now, which was Maxar, now Vantor. So all these names have changed. But I've worked globally, mainly in the area of geospatial intelligence, kind of more around surveillance and monitoring. Asset management is a big part, and then underneath that, kind of veg management, and most recently wildfire mitigation management and all hazards. So been delivering mainly to utilities, electric utilities, pipeline, rail, mainly linear infrastructure customers around the globe. So so part of that is I've had startups that I've been a part of, some of my own that I started, some that I work for that were all sold, with the exception of one. So that's been pretty fun. So I've done some M&A and that kind of stuff on that side, as well as consulting and in the technology and SaaS world. So that's kind of my brand. I've worked in pretty much every market really except healthcare. So they kind of transfer across quite easily when it comes to those types of solutions and professional services. So again, thanks for having me today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited to dive into this conversation. Before we do that, a few housekeeping things. We are hopefully, I haven't double checked, but hopefully we're live on LinkedIn and on YouTube. Drop any questions that you have for us or for Tony or anything you want to add to the conversation into the comments or the chat or whatever it looks like for you, wherever you are. And we're on a little bit of a delay, I think, but I'll be monitoring that and we'll add that to the conversation as well. So feel free to do that. And Joel, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah.
Kick us off.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask our favorite swag question. So, we'll get started with that. I'm actually going vintage today. This is the first swag item that I helped put together at Noteworthy following the storm season in 2024. We had helped with Helene and Milton with some Florida utilities and their storm response efforts. So we put together a shirt for the team afterwards. So that was actually the first piece of swag I did with the Noteworthy team. So going old school for me, but
Vintage, I like that.
Yeah. Do you have anything you've received over the years, either, as a gift from another company or, one of the things that you've gotten from,
Yeah.
companies you work for that you really like? I always like ideas for the team and for
Yeah,
customers.
yeah. Well, I have a couple examples. So the first is, my favorite is basically the vest, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
this is by far the great. I was going to put it on, but it's kind of hot here today, so it's already like 90 degrees. The other ones I received are pretty cool. I'm a big Lego guy,
Okay.
so this one's from Planet. This is a
Yeah.
Dove
That's a cool
model.
one.
That is very
Um,
cool.
it was very cool. And then the most recent one, former company, so Livio on their
Yeah.
new satellite they're building. So it's pretty cool.
Very cool.
I have a bunch of these, so I won't bore you
Yeah.
on some of the other ones.
No, that's
I
cool.
mean, for me, it's like anything Lego, I'm good. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm all right.
I
Let's
like
do it.
that. We might have to look into that, Joel.
We
Yeah.
might, I always think it's like, that's like the MTV Cribs thing, it's like
Yeah.
tour the desk and, see what people have around their office.
Yeah. Other than these things behind me that
Yeah.
I received, posters, and these
Yeah.
pictures over here behind me are from space imaging. Were some of the
Yeah.
first satellite images and stuff from years ago, and so
Yeah.
I've got these down in my basement too, so those are kind of cool. So
Yeah.
fun.
No, that's great. I love a good vest as well. I think those end up being one of the most versatile, professional wear items because you can really
Easy.
layer it with anything. So, yeah, very good on that. I'll tie it to what you said right off the start from a question perspective. You mentioned, just the breadth of industries that you've worked across over the years, and certainly geospatial data has value for so many different industries. So you can have that vantage point, sort of looking across everything. What's your perspective? Obviously satellites are a big part of your history, but I know you've had exposure to a number of other technologies and sort of how these programs come together.
Yeah.
When and how does a utility decide what information they actually need to make decisions? And I think we probably had some conversations around this over the years, but how do you know what the right tool for the job is, and when do you know if you have enough data to make a decision before you spend the money, maybe looking at something with another, from another vantage point?
Right. No, great question. I think the key there is to, at least from what we've discussed before, Joel, we talked about is, people talk about use cases, right? You got to know the use case, and then kind of dive into that a little deeper. What are they trying to accomplish? What are they trying, kind of insights that they're going to derive from data, whether that's tabular data that they have out of their back office systems like OMS and ADMS, et cetera. Well, what about kind of the geospatial data that's coming from multi-modalities, right? From satellites to aerial to drones to mobile to whatever. What is it that they need? But more importantly, two things. One is, how is those insights assisting across other departments? Like, what is the program that they're doing? Not just that specific pinpoint solution. But what is it that they just minimally need in order to operate, to actually take that insight and make it actionable? And, like if it's management, for example, and they have an encroachment or some clearance or whatever about, tree or whatever. What is it that the people that are actually doing the work, what do they need in order to perform that particular operation to complete it? And then what did they do, right, to complete it? And did what we provided, or the organization provided the insight, did it work? So kind of the data, I call it kind of the data life cycle, right? Kind of going around, use case, work your way backwards, what's necessary. Don't overdo it. Like a minimum viable information or insight. A lot of people are collecting more than what they typically need, but they may be doing that for a reason, for purpose, because it may be extended across the enterprise, like prevention management, asset, environmental, right of way, etc. So looking at it from the perspective of, safety, components, what are they need to do that for that? So what other departments or may use that, so you can do a one-to-many. So if that particular insight can be used across the enterprise or across different departments, then it's more valuable internally, right? But it's more accessible, and therefore it's probably being collected, for example, what I call for purpose, not just input. Now there are cases where you just need a specific thing, but overall, I think in these programs and stuff that most of these organizations are doing, or they like to try to leverage.
Yeah. These are, I think, all really important things you're bringing up. Just there are so many teams that have a stake in the maintenance of the poles and the assets connected to the poles, and I think it's really important utilities find ways to extend the value of their collection efforts so they can repeat that the processing of that data, let multiple teams benefit from having access to that data to potentially avoid doing extra truck rolls, to be more proactive. I think one of the things we hear a lot about in the utility space is sort of the legacy structure is really cycle based, and how can technologies help the utilities? They may still have a regulatory box they need to check, but what can they be doing to potentially be getting more condition based and even predictive in some of these maintenance programs? What's your thoughts on how the different technologies can come together in these programs to give sort of that layered view and help utilities be more proactive?
Yeah, it's good. You mentioned going from, if we're specifically kind of talk about, let's say, veg management, for example, kind of cycle based. Now it's been doing that for a long time, going to more condition to predictive. I think the kind of the prescription, if you will, recipe is you need to find out what your base is first. I mean, that's paramount. And what I mean by that is, what technologies can give you basically a snapshot of what your network looks like, whether it's transmission, distribution, or both. The most kind of the easiest way today, or kind of my most efficient way to do that today, is two ways to do it. One is satellite. You can do that, and you can do it pretty quickly. It'll give you a snapshot of kind of where you may have encroachments, right? And then you can also determine some other things in fallings and growings and stuff like that from the satellite data. I think that's a good way to do it. Another way is just doing a LiDAR collect, build a 4D model, right? So now you have something that's very accurate, very complete, and then you can build on top of it. Most organizations will do a combination of those at the beginning. And then from that, you can identify and prioritize that based on the business rules that the organization has. But also, what's important is what's the risk? What's their risk profile look like? So that kind of narrows it down even more, which basically leads to a different modality, right? Maybe it's going and doing ground based, maybe it's field based, maybe it's mobile, maybe it's the drone. They all are part of that overall program. And I think if you do it correctly, and you plan it out kind of holistically, put that program together over the year, you can go from cycle based to condition, right? Because now you're prioritizing, and you can send people where they need to go. Some people will call that hotspotting. That's not hotspotting. It's not hotspotting. You have hotspots, but this is kind of more planned, right? It's data driven. Okay, that's the point. Hotspot's kind of more reactive. This is not reactive. It's very data driven, very planned. And then from that, after you do it for a period of time, you then can take and look at that progress over that period of time, and then come up with some predictions. So if you're doing tree species or stuff like that, or growth models around that, health, etc., about vegetation, but also knowing about the asset itself, which is highly important. What are the condition of the asset? First, I've noticed globally, and I've used this in people that may be online, maybe hear me say this all the time. I've never met a utility in all the ones I've worked with over the years that their asset information coming from their registry is not accurate to ground. It's always off 100% of the time. And typically, if you're doing it correctly, going in that direction, you will find that on average, you'll find 30% more assets than the utility typically has in their register.
Wow.
And it's pretty amazing. You wouldn't believe that, but a lot of times I'll sit in front of a customer and they'll just go, yeah, we know. I know that they know.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, so once you get that base, then you can start doing these other things that are kind of more, I'd say more important, but you can start looking at outside the right of way, let's say for all hazards, or, when it comes to wildfire, or ignition point. So it's really important to kind of know all those things together. So there's some great ways to collect the data using the different modalities, but keep in mind, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do, LiDAR for the whole thing if you don't want to, because certain areas you may not have to do it out in the middle of rural areas. Probably not necessary. So it's really kind of planning that, orchestrating it more at the end of the day. So.
No, what you're mentioning on just those missing assets, we just did a presentation with Dominion actually a few weeks back on the IMAP program, and that was one of the key findings they had was without having this sort of baseline collection comprehensively of these circuits, there were definitely assets that were missing from the GIS, and like the end result of that is you don't have a record of them in your system. They don't ultimately end up in an inspection cycle. They don't get, if they could be the cause of an outage because they're not maintained the way some of the other assets are. And then when you dispatch restoration crews, they don't even know where to go because they're going to the assets they know about, not the ones they don't know about.
Exactly.
So I think, that's a really valuable piece of it is, just making sure you have as complete knowledge of your system as it exists today, and knowing what the attachments are on it. Could be new joint use attachments that show up without permission that are now overloading poles. There's a lot of stuff that happens, and maintaining something proactively definitely changes the dynamic of how you can respond to things, and not be reactive. So I think one of the things you brought up that I'd like to maybe go into a little bit more is all these different collection modalities that we've been talking about. They provide a different lens into the assets. Some cases it's one team that's driving the need to collect with that. What are you seeing from an industry perspective as far as how to consolidate all these inputs into like single views for other users around the organization to have access to it? Because I think that's one of the challenges in many cases are the silos that you have across the organizations. What are you seeing from some of the engagements you've had over the years trying to address that?
Well, I think part of that's kind of what people would classify as kind of integrated data management, right? So there's some neat technologies out there that folks are doing that are bringing in different data from kind of the beginning of the process, kind of more of the geospatial data or field data, right, coming in. And then you have all the other data that's being generated based on their business processes or their business systems, like outage management, ADMS, all those types of things, SCADA. So they're kind of bringing that all together. Some are doing this. I know that PG&E's got an initiative doing this, kind of bringing that together. There's some technologies out there, you can take Stack and stuff like that and build this architecture. Basically, is where you can bring these data in. You can basically normalize it, right, to the point, and then have ability to kind of harmonize it. So then when you look at it, you can say, all right, show me all the data that was collected or as reference to this poll over the last X, right?
Yep.
That's happening. There's a the technology in that, and the architecture that's available to today is a lot easier than it was years ago.
Yeah.
So that's something that folks are doing. And I think the drivers for that really are more towards a couple things. One is kind of more on I'm going to call it grid mod. Okay, that's big. That covers a whole lot of things. But I think part of that is like if you're doing ADMS, for example, typically you want to have the data kind of, I would say, correct, I guess, or complete. Maybe that's a better word. Before you put it in there. So the big initiative recently for some utilities, doing a UN, right, migrating it over, collecting, doing all that different area, kind of looking where the gaps are, filling those gaps in, but they're able to visualize it. And then there's some other technologies out there that are allowing the geospatial data along with
Mhm.
those to kind of look and say, I want to find out. So there's some kind of more of the exploratory, then there's
Mhm.
the viewing, and then there's the analytics.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I was able to take in, all the past LiDAR data or all the
Mhm.
past imagery data, I could do a lot with it. I can extract
Yeah.
things. I can do things if it's not multispectral, but say it's 4-band. You can do a lot of analysis when it looks like for health of species and trees and that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
vegetation over a period of time. So that's a big area of concentration, I think, and that
Mhm.
goes across the enterprise, right? So that's
Yeah.
for basically all groups, right? If
Yeah.
I'm asset and I want to look at what the last action taken and what was done
Mhm.
on that asset, but what was done around it,
Yeah.
as opposed to just on that particular unit,
Yeah.
that compatible unit, then you can do that. So that's kind of moving in that direction. And I think with ML and some of the large learning models and some of the AI that's being applied to that,
Mhm.
you have to have all that normalized and correct first. So I
Yeah.
think some people jumped the gun a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah.
They didn't do that, and I think
Yep.
they're finding out. So it's part of that learning process, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important piece of the thing, and I um, been involved in that in the last several years, kind of helping groups do that. I know some utilities, like I mentioned, are going down that road,
Yeah.
which is good. So
Yeah.
kind of helps all aspects of the process, beginning to end. So
Yeah. No, we definitely are working with a
yep,
number of utilities. That's their focus is having
yep,
that, single pane of glass, digital
yep,
twin, whatever you want to call it. But,
right,
they want to be able to move, sort of collection modality
right,
contextually and, have one place that they can say sort of is the system of record
a
for
record, yep,
what's been collected
right,
for those assets. Certainly shapes how we try to deploy here at Noteworthy, because I don't think
mm-hmm.
anyone's looking to have an extra login that they have to go to find something
Oh
they're
yeah,
looking
yeah,
for. It's like you
yeah,
want to be able to just work out of one place all the time.
exactly.
I'd say related to that, I'm interested in your perspective on this, because you've seen so many different types of had experience working with so many different types of data sets. I think the general perspective is more data is better, but would I be correct in saying it's really more actionable insights is better?
Correct. Yes, yes, absolutely.
And how can the industry from a solution provider collaborate with utilities to make things more actionable versus just
Yeah,
more terabytes of data being stored in the
right,
cloud somewhere?
right. All right. I think it's kind of going back to the beginning about the use case, right, or use
Yeah.
cases. There are instances where utilities will do stuff for pinpoint, right, and a lot of times that's maybe for proof of concept.
Hmm.
So innovation group does its thing. They go out and say, "Hey, we're going to try this technology, which I think is a good thing." That doesn't always lead to a program,
Yeah.
because that group typically has to sell to the business, right? So they
Yeah.
may prove out the
Yeah.
technology. They may not be ready for it.
Yeah.
That's part of it. So
Yeah.
if you look at the kind of those big four pillars, people, process, data, and technology, right?
Hmm.
They all go together, right? So
Yeah.
I think when you're looking for producing an insight, that typically comes from what the use case or use cases are. And again, looking from a holistically, why are they doing it?
Hmm.
What is it tied to? Where is it going? Who's going to
Yeah.
use it? All those things. I think, just stepping back and kind of having that conversation, and get
Yeah.
as many people engaged. It's not like decision by committee, but it is more of
Yeah.
gathering as much information as you can about why, and
Yeah.
ask the 5 whys, right? Why? That can kind of drive you down to what would be
Hmm.
just necessary. Or maybe it's just say, I'm going to combine this with this, right? So what is what's the
Yeah.
sequence basically? How are they doing it?
Yeah.
Or what's the end result that they want to see? So I think typically I found kind of the most value to the organization is, who's going to be using it,
Yeah.
right? For what purpose? And
Yeah.
I would say 9 times out of 10, it's a field personnel. It's somebody,
Hmm.
either a contractor that's combining with something else, or it is the organization's group doing it.
Hmm.
And so what is the end result of that action?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it concentration needs to be on did it work. I think we talked about this, Joel. I've been asked this question for the last several years. I've had the opportunity to sit and talk with CEOs and whatever, and I most recently at the EI 2026, I did finally get an answer from a CEO about, is this working? And it was around wildfire. All these things they're doing, the insights, all the stuff.
Yeah.
Did it actually prevent a fire? Question mark. And I think I did get an answer. And the answer was, well, we don't know, but we do know that it's preventative, right? We're trying to prevent. You're not going to eliminate certain things, but you can certainly put in the prevention aspect of it. But it all goes down at the end of the day to the risk profile. What risk is the utility or the commercial entity or whoever? What's the risk that they're willing to accept? So you kind of need to know that that's part of it. But I think as far as doing the action, it's really about checking to see if it actually worked. Get that additional insight that you provided from a LiDAR capture or from a, capture with imagery. Did it work? So I think that's kind of the next thing, I think, is, looking at that. And, you can point to certain things that, yes, that did help us with, our efficiency. Right. But was it really about efficiency or was it about prevention? Or safety or reliability? And how do you go back and look at that and say, did that actually help? I would think most, like I said, I've been asked a question for a long time. And I think part of it is don't want to collect overkill because that can cause a lot of, it's like, getting a glass of water as opposed to a whole tub of water. It's like, what do you need? I'm not going to drink the whole thing. So part of that, again, a lot of I've seen over the years, collecting lots of information and a lot of it just sits there. It's kind of sad to some extent, but maybe they can go back and use it later. But I think certain data has a shelf life.
Absolutely.
I think part of it now, with going back to the data management piece, being able to look and extract that over time, the trends, that's a good thing. But I think part of it is just collect what you need. And check to see if it worked. Did you produce the insight, but did the insight get actioned appropriately? Right.
I think, to that, there is value in having that history over time. To the extent that it's able to be analyzed and processed in a scalable way, obviously. So, you do want to be able to, over time, moving towards the predictive side of things, you need that history. But, I think, that's where hopefully a lot of the newer technologies, the AI analytics layers and things can come in and streamline some of those workflows. Because, otherwise it is just terabytes of data that's sitting there that no one's got the time to go through and sift through and, hunt for something. It's like, in a lot of cases, you're trying to find a needle in a haystack. And ultimately, subject matter experts say, we found a needle, but how you sift through that, I think that's an area that I don't know, people always appreciate, how important the human subject matter experts still are in this, and how much of their time is taken up by things that, could be automated or streamlined to help gain some of those efficiencies. I think that, we actually going through an exercise right now for one of our customers, helping them build out sort of a calculator, benefit calculator across a lot of the different metrics you mentioned. Savings is one that I think is very topical in the industry right now. I'm interested in your perspective on this, if it's really savings that's the end goal or better results without increasing spend, and what that continuum looks like, because just because something may cost less doesn't mean you're actually going to bank the savings necessarily. I'm curious your thoughts over the years working with customers, because obviously efficiency improvements are always a goal that people have. I think I was told by one of the directors of asset for one of the big utilities, savings is not the goal in the true savings. It's more about repurposing. So if I can say for my veg program that I can reduce X
as far as the time spent by 30%.
Yeah.
It's basically now they can do a certain more on the
30%
thing.
or
That's
whatever
going
it
from
is.
that cycle to condition right now.
Mhm.
I've saved time, whatever. Now I can take that dollars, right,
Yeah.
or resources and repurpose them to do more with the same.
Yeah.
I think, I always look at it this way, I mean, where I live, I don't think I've ever got a rebate from my utility. So I think it's like, maybe they're doing it now because you're doing something else like
Yeah.
solar and it's buying back. But I don't think they say, oh yeah, we
Yeah.
saved, $2 trillion when we're going to get back it. No, I don't
Yeah.
think that's how it works. Maybe it does in certain places. I know for co-ops and stuff like that, it does. But I think it's, getting to the point where, to become more efficient, if I can do, 10%, 20, 30, 40% more of my lines a year or whatever, then that's more resilient. That's,
Yeah.
all those things come into play that they want to do,
Yeah.
resiliency, reliability, affordability, blah, blah, blah. That's the goal, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I think the savings part is really about that. I think more so it's, what value did it bring to the utility and the overall program? Did it, did it expand to some other group? Did it help with something else, whatever that is? And I know it's kind of hard sometimes to look at it across what they're doing, but I always kind of tie it back to what the big initiatives are. Those change. I mean, recently it's changed quite a bit. I was just doing this paper, and it's kind of like looking at what the big topics were 3 or 4 or 5 years ago versus what they are today. Way different. I mean, they're still talking about it, like renewables, right, was huge like 4 years ago. I mean, that was it. And then it was wildfire. It was like, and now those are probably 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
And now it's data centers.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, what, but I think what we do as far as our space, we help all those things. So it's just about trying to keep ourselves, I want to say relevant, but more or less kind of making sure that they understand that these things need to be done regardless of what these priorities are over here, because they're all around assets. Right. So it's all that same thing. So I think that part's good. And I think that's part of the value component to it, as much as the savings is, right? They can, one to many, obviously that's better for them than, better for us, right? I mean, as well, right? Make ourselves more relevant, right?
No, I think it's very important for all of us, on the solution provider side to make sure we speak the right language and, tie into, some of the pressures. Ultimately it's what pressures are these utilities facing from the various stakeholders that they're responsible to, and whether that's affordability, whether that's for a long time load was actually decreasing, so it was very different set of priorities and how you maintain assets. Now they're facing more throughput pressure on those same assets. It's how do you extend the life and make sure there's not going to be failure points on it, and like you said, it's a very evergreen space that we're trying to support. Assets aren't getting any newer, generally speaking. So, it's really how do you help them, improve the reliability and resiliency with a lot of money is going into transmission. Distribution certainly is getting some attention, but I think for distribution, it's always about how do you improve the efficiency of what's out there already. And
absolutely, that's knowing where things are, right? That's important.
And
at the beginning,
it's the vast majority of the assets out there, whether you're talking about individual assets, line miles, whatever it is. It's like, I think the stats, it's like 90+% of outages are caused on the distribution side. So, what's actually impacting the end customer? What do they see in their backyard? It's like, how do you help utilities stay ahead of what's going on there and not be in a reactive mode? I think one thing maybe, and Abby, I don't think we got a lot of questions in there. I saw Richard had a great comment in there. I think it tied back earlier to how some of these prioritization decisions are being made. But I think one thing I'd be interested in, sort of your take, and it sort of set it up with the previous answer, talking about the last several years and the changes we've seen in the industry. What are you anticipating, or what are you monitoring as far as like future looking trends for how these technologies and programs come together? Like what do you think is next, so to speak? So
That's a great question. Thinking my crystal ball.
Exactly.
Well, I can tell
You're as
you
qualified as anyone. So
this as a, with some of the, my colleagues that we have these discussions quite a bit, and we're looking at some of the things that we were doing, years ago.
mhm.
They're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I think the frequency of these types of activities that they're doing for veg and whether they're obviously doing more, technology is a piece of it. That's a big piece of it,
Mhm.
but it's not just technology.
Yeah.
Going back to that technology, data, people, process, it's all
Yeah.
those. I think the one that's the most important, that make or break a program, is the people and the change management.
Yeah.
That is a massive thing, and that's been on the plate, I think, since I started doing this. I mean, that's
Yeah.
And then regardless of what industry it is, and we all
Yeah.
know we're all the same. We're people, right? We can't stand change, right? I mean, it's like that is not in our DNA, right?
Yeah.
So I think technology does make it a little bit easier. I say easier, but it makes it maybe make it easier. But how does it affect what I'm doing in my job?
Mhm.
How does that affect, is it going to take away my job? Is it
Yeah.
going to, I mean, that's a big thing. I think AI
Yeah.
is like a really scary thing to some people. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, hey, you're going to do this. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
really about kind of helping organizations understand that repurposing,
Mhm.
right, is important.
Yeah.
Just had this conversation a few months ago. It's like, well, it's not getting ready. We're going to take repurpose and
Yeah.
kind of add, not add on more work, but kind of
Yeah.
do more with this because it's better.
Increasing the throughput. Yeah.
Yes, that's a part of it. I think that's a big trend. I
Mhm.
do think, as far as from an infrastructure perspective and the programs that they currently have right now, the initiatives that's not going to stop. I mean, we already know. I mean, I can tell you, 20 years ago or whatever, the number of dollars was, maybe it was almost $1 trillion for our grid is in a bad shape, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Now it's 5, 10, it just
Yeah.
keeps going up.
Yeah.
And I think,
Yeah.
being able to continue to evolve, if you will, when it comes to our infrastructure,
Mhm.
that goes not only just with electric utilities, but every other
Yeah.
infrastructure, kind of getting them up to par. What
Yeah.
that is, I don't know, because all these other things are changing, the demands are changing.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of discussion, but a lot of discovery of what that's
Yeah.
going to be.
Yeah.
I say, in my career, the two industries that always spend money are government and utilities,
Yeah.
regardless of what the economy is. It does
Yeah.
not matter.
Yeah.
So that's something that goes, because if you think about it, electricity goes down, all kinds of other things happen, right? And that's
Yeah.
not, so it is, that's why it's a critical infrastructure.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
do think the build out those things, I think the continued asset component, maintenance, management, condition stuff is hugely key.
Yeah.
Technologies on that side are coming in, better insulators, da da da.
Yep.
Trying to do, I'd say more with less, but kind of more with what you have.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like key. What are they doing? So I think part of that is important. So I think all aspects, we were talking about this about 6 months ago that with some of my colleagues, and we were saying that we haven't seen this much activity in the utility business in our whole career.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm predicting, as I put my little hat on, that is definitely going to continue.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to continue. And I think with the aggregation too, I think with this, next terabyte Dominion, that I think that's probably more of those are going to happen. We're seeing it on the commercial side that companies are aggregating. Faster than I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So I think it's part of it, but I think that's all a good thing. I think it's good because we're all kind of focused on the same mission, if you will, right?
100%.
So
I think
that's what I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, tying to your comment on the M&A activity in the space and stuff, I think whether you're looking at it from like a program level at the utility side, whether you're looking at it from like big picture infrastructure, whether you're thinking about it from a commercial and M&A perspective, everyone's trying to figure out where the puzzle pieces fit together. And as like new things come into the market from a technology perspective, oh, that fills that gap there that we previously had, and that makes the program more efficient. Or this is a really natural fit to our portfolio that makes everything else work better. And So I think that's the exciting point for us, is seeing utilities start to connect the dots on where the puzzle pieces all fit together, and always evolving, because there's new things that get introduced into the market that add another lens to what they can do with their assets. But
that's the one constant, right?
Yeah,
is the assets, right? I mean, that's not
yeah,
gonna go away.
And going back to your comment on people as well, I think that's another constant. Hopefully we'll always have people in those subject matter experts, and
absolutely,
and making sure that, and even from our perspective, when we could have the best technology in the world, but if people aren't there to see the value in it and adopt it and use it, then it's really no good. It's like having all of the data but not being able to do anything with it and have those actionable insights. So
absolutely, that's a good point. It's that acceptance, adoption, and then for that next phase is internalizing, right? How do you internalize it? Meaning, how do you get it across the enterprise in that respect? So you've seen it happen. I mean, GIS is one, right? I mean, it took a while for it to engage itself within the utility space, but now it's, like I said earlier, is the geospatial component it's pervasive across many, many industries. So I think part of it is, I try to do sometimes to say, well, in this industry here, even though they're not the same, there's similarities. This is how they're using that. This is how they're using the data, right? So I think there's, I would say, cross-pollination between industries, but that does happen. They go out and have conversations with each other, and these forums that are there, I think, are good. So these types of things are good, right? Get the word out, talk about it, have discussion, right? Which I think is very, very helpful. Gets people to be a little more informed, which is a good thing.
I mean, the geospatial space, it's fascinating. I mean, I think you pick any industry that has quote unquote network, whether you're talking like, roads and highways, whether you're talking, telecom, whatever, utilities, it's like you've got these assets spread out over such a large space that all are, deteriorating at different speeds based on all the environmental conditions they're exposed to. It's like, how do you stay on top of that? And I think, having sort of that foundational layer of truth that you trust, that's constantly refreshing.
That's key.
That's the key. So
definitely key for sure.
Absolutely.
This was fascinating. Any final thoughts from anyone? I feel like I got a lot out of this, even though we've spoken so many times over the years, Tony. There's a lot of things.
That was very interesting. Very interesting. I'm gonna take Tony's predictions for the future. I'm gonna clip that and then make a reminder, and we'll revisit that in a year or so and see what we're going through.
Time capsule 5 years from now. So.
I like it. We should make
August
that a thing.
August 20th, 2021.
So I gotta send you my disclaimer for people to do
it. Exactly. Any other thoughts from anybody? This is a great conversation.
No, I think it's good. I appreciate you guys having me on today, and I think keep doing these types of things is awesome. So
absolutely. I mean, I think the main takeaway is none of us really know where it's going, but the more that we can talk about it and share insights and have discussions like this, the better. So
absolutely.
We appreciate you.
Collectively, we're all shaping where it goes. So the conversations are critical, so.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make sure you maintain yourself as a participant, not just an observer.
Not a spectator. It's not a spectator sport for sure.
That was a good one. I like that. That's a good ending. Thank you, Tony, for joining us. This was, again, a great conversation. I learned a lot. We'll be back in 2 weeks, Rachel.
We've got a great guest lined up. We're going to be announcing who that is shortly, but we've got a couple good guests coming in September, so excited.
I know some of your future guests. I just talked to them the other day, so
perfect. We're gonna try and keep on the bi-weekly cadence, so keep tuned in on YouTube and LinkedIn, and I think that's it. We'll see you next time.
All right, thanks guys.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.